In this video, we're going to discuss why you need to be utilizing a call center within your land investing business. Hey guys, this is Sumner Healey from landinvestor.co. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new here, I sell land on the internet. In the last 18 months, I've done a little over $2.2 million in raw land sales on the internet, and I make these videos for you. Well, I also do it to document my journey, but I hope I can help others along the way. So in our land investing business, we send out tens of thousands of pieces of direct mail per month. These are what we call blind offers. So on one hand, it has our copy that's written on it, and then on the back end, we've got a purchase agreement that we send with it. Now, as you can imagine, when you're doing that level of volume, we get a ton of inbound inquiries sent to us every single day. Some of that looks like signed purchase agreements, but the vast majority of it comes as inbound phone calls where people are thinking about selling, but they want to get to know us a little bit better. They want to see if they can get a better offer price. They want to negotiate. In a lot of cases, they just want to make sure that we're a real person and a real company. So for the first 2 years of my business, I took every single inbound phone call. It was absolutely nuts. I would take anywhere between 15 to 50 calls a day just from sellers. So as I started scaling up and we're doing more deals and we had more revenue coming in, I was like, I need to solve this problem. I need someone to be taking that first inbound phone call that comes our way. And so my initial hunch was that, hey, you know what? I'm going to hire someone to work on our team full time and they will just handle all of those inbound phone calls. That seems like the best option. You know, typically in business, I'm not a big fan of using third-party agencies or using third-party vendors. I typically like to hire in-house, train, and then scale someone up. Typically, it's going to be more cost-effective, and in a lot of cases too, you're just going to get a better quality of work. But this is the one place in the land investing business where I was just proven completely wrong. So we ended up going with a company called Pat Live, and they manage all of the inbound calls that we get from sellers. And this isn't an ad for Pat Live. I have no affiliation with them, but the reason that we utilize a call center is because what we've noticed in this business is if you miss that seller's call, there is a high likelihood that you will never get in touch with them again. It seems crazy, right? Like they called, they must be interested, and a lot of people are interested, but they get busy, they don't recognize the number, they go on a vacation, they forget about it, they lose the letter, and ultimately they lose interest. So what we found is having someone on our team working full-time 5 days a week, one, they were still missing calls while they were on another call with a seller, and B, they were missing calls on the weekends, on holidays, at night. And so what's beautiful about using a service like Pat Live is they operate 24/7. No joke. They will pick up a call at any time of the hour. They operate 365 days a year. They're there on Sundays, they're there on Christmas, they're there on Thanksgiving. There is always a warm body on the other end of the phone ready to take that call. And because you're not working with just one person within Pat Live, if someone calls and one operator is busy talking to one of your sellers and there's another operator that can be available to take that call from the other seller that's coming, and on and on and on. And so they could be juggling dozens of your phone calls at once, and no one's ever going to slip through the cracks. Now, it's important to note that using a call center, you have to understand that they're not going to do any of the negotiating, they're not going to do any selling, they're not going to do anything along those lines. Really, all they're doing is acting as a warm body who will pick up the phone anytime someone calls, and then we've built out a specific script for them that they will go through the script, and then they do some fact finding to ask some general questions. Now, what we've noticed about taking inbound seller calls is you typically have a finite amount of time on that call. A lot of these people don't want to get warm and fuzzy and have a 45-minute conversation with you. You know, sometimes you get the chatty grandma that calls in, but for the most part, it's people that are just, hey, what's my offer? Hey, how much can I get for the property? So we've whittled down a script for them to use that's really, really effective and just gleans out the most important information that we need. That information looks like their name, who's on title, if they're not on title, the relation to the person that is on title, the county of the property, the state of the property, the parcel number for the property, utilities, so water, power, sewer, if any. If it doesn't have traditional access, does it have an easement, or is it totally landlocked? Then we give them a scale of 1 to 5 how badly they want to sell. 5 being, I want to sell today, and 1 being, I'm just here to get a price on my property. Then we ask them for any notes in regard to the property. We actually get a ton of information when we just ask an open-ended question. Some people are like, hey, I had a death in the family, or hey, I'm moving out of the country, or hey, you know what, I saw that you offered $60,000, but I really want $1 million for the property, on and on and on again. So our last question is just a very broad open-ended question. The other reason we keep our script super duper short is because we get charged by the minute. So when they're on those calls, we actually don't want them to be chopping it up and having a lengthy conversation. We want to glean the important information, hang up the phone, and not waste any more dollars while they're on the call. So that solves our problem in terms of always having someone ready to answer those calls. But of course, they're not doing any of the negotiating, they're not doing any of that fun stuff. So what we have them do is they submit a very simple Google form with all of the responses that they got from the questions that they asked. Then we have our acquisitions VA go and pull that information from the Google form, and then they add that to our CRM, which is Follow Up Boss. And then once we get that lead in our system, our acquisitions manager actually goes and reviews the property, comps the property, and then goes ahead and gives them a call. Now on that second call, this is when we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes in terms of negotiating, in terms of actually structuring a deal, in terms of walking the seller through next steps. One of the problems that we found with the call center is they don't actually have a lot of context in terms of how the process works. So if sellers ask questions about, hey, how quickly can I get paid? Or how does the process work? Or what happens after I sign the purchase agreement? They rarely have good answers for that. And so really that first call is just us fact finding. We don't do a lot of answering in terms of their questions. Then they pass it off to us. We review the property, comp the property, then our acquisitions manager calls them. Now, once we get a new inbound lead from Pat Live, what we do is within a 15-minute window, we want to call them immediately. We know they're by their phone, and typically 15 minutes is enough time for us to get a general outline of the property. And now that we've got all the minutia out of the way, we can use our time on that call to negotiate, to actually structure a deal, and then walk them through next steps. Currently, our Pat Live bill kind of runs the gamut in terms of costs, but it's anywhere on the low end of $600 a month, all the way up to $1,200 or $1,400 is the most we've ever paid. The beautiful thing is that's actually substantially less than you would pay to have a full-time employee working this role. Even if you're hiring overseas, it'd be incredibly difficult to be at that same level of expense monthly. My recommendation to you is if you're scaling up in your land business, I strongly recommend, opposed to hiring internally for that role, what you want to do is hire a call center. It could be Pat Live or it could be another option. And then what you want to do is segment the call center with that first touch point from your acquisitions manager. Your acquisitions manager should be spending all of their time in comping properties, negotiating properties, and then closing properties. You don't want them fielding a bunch of calls because this is typically going to be a higher paid position. Really can be a very entry level position in terms of taking those initial calls. They don't need to have a ton of sales chops. It's more of like a customer service role. They don't need to do any negotiating. They're not going to do any artful explanation of how our business works. And so I really recommend divvying those portions up. It'll save you cost. It'll allow you to never miss a seller call. And on top of that, you can open up more bandwidth for your acquisitions manager, or if you're new in the game and you don't have an acquisitions manager, you'll open up more bandwidth for yourself. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback down below, whether you're using a call center or maybe you're just new to the game and you want to ask some questions about land investing. I respond to every comment down below. If you're looking for more free land investing content, please be sure to subscribe. And if you're looking for land investing coaching, you can head on over to landinvestor.co. I appreciate you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.